Hello, this is Ken Ferry with this week's Boots in the Field report. Busy last couple of weeks doing field days and corn college here at the campus. Man, it's great to see all of our crop tech customers as well as farmers and industry people from all over the country. I hope you all had a good time. We sure had a good time here hosting you guys. Updates from the field this week. Matt's spraying some spider mites and beans in his area to the west. Now, these are fields previously sprayed with the fungicide, so scouts keep an eye on these mites, even if the ditches are still green. Don't let those mites build. We're seeing some aphids in soybeans in isolated areas. Some of these fields are showing diseased aphids, so with any luck, a fungus will take them out. But let's watch all fields, especially those that have been sprayed with a fungicide. Today I found spider mites in the lower leaves on a cornfield, actually in more than one cornfield. Again, this corn was sprayed with the fungicide, and the mites were way out in the field, so they're not edge mites. Now, mites in that lower canopy are not a big threat, but if they move up into that ear zone, we'll need to take them out. Tar spot continues to build in the west as more counties report tar spot. Our team doing the virtual farm visits have found tar spot on the Moultrie-Piatt-Douglas County line to the south. So scouts in this area be looking low on that plant. Tar spot in August will still do a lot of damage. For you guys in the west that are getting ready to spray a second time, if the plains didn't narrow up the first time, I would ask them if they could move their AB lines and put the center of that plane right over the overlap of our first pass. See if we can keep this streaking down. We continue to see a mixing pot of bean diseases. Most of them are all root diseases: brown stem, red root rot, charcoal rot, SDS. Probably the more common one, though, has been Phytophthora. The plants infected with the Phytophthora will hold their leaves, and the top of the plant will wilt, unlike SDS where the leaves drop off. Phytophthora infected plants will have a brown discoloration on the stem from the ground line up. This infection is an aftermath of the crop saving early July rains followed by the hot weather. As these plants die this late in the game, they will tap yield some because the rows are filled and the neighboring plants won't have enough time or sunlight to make up for these dying plants. If you have 2 or 3% of the plants dying, you're going to lower yield 2 to 3%. Now, resistant varieties and seed treatments is the only answer for Phytophthora. Most of the seed treatments have run their course by now, so it'll be up to variety resistance. And while most varieties are doing pretty good, less than 1% dying plants, I've seen some varieties that are nearing 10% dying plants. This is hard to see scouting from the road. When those intermittent plants die, they tend to wilt, so they're going to shrink down into that canopy. Again, you're not going to be able to see this from the road unless you have a big enough patch of plants dying that you can notice it. Stressed areas tend to show more, like your wet holes, compaction, cyst nematodes. And again, we can't do anything about it, but in your scouting notes, it should be recorded so the next time that field goes to beans, you're ready with your seed treatments and your variety selection. The presence of cyst that we are finding in soybean cyst-resistant beans is high. Now, it's been climbing for years, but it's noticeably higher this year. The PI 88788 resistance is having the most trouble. I do believe our cyst populations here in the Midwest have come around this resistance. If you're finding heavy cyst pressure in your beans that get the resistance from the PI 88788, might be time to switch to a Peking resistance if you can find it. Good luck there. There aren't many options out there. Adding a nematode protectant seed treatment will be a must in these fields. We're seeing a burst of racemes popping out of many soybean fields, especially the May planted ones, and they are loaded with flowers. Now, it's not uncommon to see the racemes, and they'll have pods at the base, fresh flowers at the top. In that situation, those top flowers are going to abort. The competition of those lower pods will knock them off. But what we're seeing out here, and as farmers are sending in pictures, these new racemes are popping up, and they are very uniform and have flowers from top to bottom. This has the potential to really boost pod set. All we need is that August rain. Because of the blast of flowers, we do need to be careful with any herbicide rescue sprays. Make sure the weeds are a real threat. Possible, resort to spot spraying or hand weeding. Last week's heat did damage some of this corn. As pictures come in from growers and what I'm seeing as well, and the virtual farm visit team is picking up, some hybrids have blown off their tips. What pollinated 45 long is now 29 long. What was in white blister last week was at a bigger risk. Now keep this in mind as you evaluate your hybrid plots. You might find a group of hybrids, let's say 107 to 109 day range, that threw their tips off because they were at the wrong stage last week. You go on down the road, and you might have a similar plot planted a week earlier or a week later, and that maturity group may be okay. When you look at the plot data this fall coming in from the neighborhood, and you see hybrids trading places, winning this one, losing that one, that type of thing, look at the plot's planting date, and you may find the answer to why hybrids are swinging back and forth. We can see the June drought, and it has been dinging the G and L1 hybrids, pulling back girth and cob length. I suspect kernel abortion from last week will hit the L2 hybrids harder. Now, this is exactly why you try to mitigate risk at the pollination window. Typically, we would break our hybrids up into early, mid, and full season. You plant your early maturing hybrids first, your full season last. This will keep you from having all of your crop from pollinating in the hottest week of the year, which, by the way, is Corn College Week, and keep your harvest from being jammed up with too many acres ready at the same time. A lot of growers will reverse that, and they'll plant their full season first and their early season last. And if you do that, you're going to jam it all into the same week of pollination. No mitigation of risk. I was asked this week, we've been scouting fields religiously and not finding anything. When can we stop scouting? The answer is when you close the bin door. And even then, whoever's watching over the harvested grain will need to keep an eye on it until it leaves the farm. I know we rock some worlds at our field day talking about the CI scores of your grain. And if you got home and you became confused as you mulled it through and you have a lot of questions on it, just shoot us an email or give us a call and we'll try to straighten it out for you. Guys, I'm seeing a respectable crop out there, and many of the farmers who attended our field days locally and across the United States believe that they have an average to above average crop as well. So let's pray for rain in August and mark it accordingly. To stay up to date, check out our website at croptechinc.com and subscribe to our podcast, Boots in the Field Report. Keep her safe, keep her moving.